Hey boys and girls, we're going to do a little one-point perspective today. One-point perspective can be really fun to learn because once you know, you're just going to be making all kinds of fun shapes. One of the things I want you to understand is the difference between a shape and a form. So today we're going to draw some squares in one-point perspective. So this is a square, this is a shape. This is a two-dimensional shape. It has a height and it has a width, like that. Now a three-dimensional shape, this is a little bit of like what you are probably learning in math class. You have height, you have width, and you have depth. So this makes up a three-dimensional shape, which is also known as a form. And a two-dimensional shape is a shape. Shapes are flat, forms are three-dimensional. So a lot of you have learned and corrected me in class that this is wrong, that one of these measurements is length, which I guess I understand, except any one of these height, width, and depth can all have a length. Length to me equals long. I know that's how I learned it in school. I don't know why they changed it, but height is how high something is. Width is how wide something is. Depth is how deep something is. So I really thought that all of those can have a length. So anyway, who am I? I'm just an art teacher. I'm not a math teacher, but it seems to me that this makes more sense. But I just basically want you to understand the difference between 2D and 3D. So how we get started, you have a ruler. I prefer always using these clear rulers because it's just handy when you're trying to draw things and you want to see beneath. But I'm going to start by drawing a line through the middle of the paper, and this is going to be our horizon line. The horizon line is where the sky and the land meet. So let's pretend this is the Earth, and this is the vanishing point on the Earth. That's as far as my eyes allow me to see, but it's going to look like our shapes are connected to it. And that's how space works. There's a point at which things vanish, and it's not that they go poof and they vanish, it's just that we can't see any further. Now, if we had binoculars or telescopes, we could extend our vanishing points, but in this case, we don't. It's just a piece of paper. So this is my sky, this is my land. I like starting with very basic shapes, and so we're gonna start with some simple square rectangle-ish type of shapes. I like to draw around the top of my ruler. The more perfect your shape is when you're learning to draw this, the better. So I recommend drawing it with a ruler and not hand drawing them. Trying to keep them kind of with nice, good corners. That always helps. And then we're gonna do one above, below, and one on our horizon line. And these are the three main points of view in perspective. So this first one, I always tell everybody that there's one main rule, all corners to the vanishing point. So I'm going to start here with these first three that don't have any interruptions. The first one, right to the vanishing point. You kind of have to make sure your ruler and corners are lined up. You have to kind of go back and forth with your eyes that they're kind of lined up. So that one, this one went, now to this corner. This is kind of a no-brainer. This is pretty easy. Everybody gets this pretty easily, that all those corners. Now what do you do with this corner? Now we can draw this one. We can draw this corner to the dot, but when you're learning for the first time one-point perspective, sometimes I think that's a little tricky. If I drew this from this corner to this corner, it would look like the box is transparent, like glass, which is okay, but there's just a lot of lines going on, and I think it's hard to imagine that it is what it is. So I'm gonna not draw it all the way to the vanishing point, but what I am gonna do is draw it to the other side based on it lined up with the vanishing point, because now this will look like a box that could be open, like a cardboard box where something could just like fly in here, or maybe you're just going to set something in. So it has a little bit more feeling of perspective, but it isn't looking completely transparent. Now the next one is here, the one that's on the vanishing point. This one is, or on the horizon line. This one's a little different because it is it just has two sides that go automatically to the vanishing point without running into the rest of the shape. Now this one here, we can do the same thing. I'm going to draw this one, this corner here to the vanishing point, but I'm going to stop when I run into the actual side. Now it looks like a door that I could walk through. I'm going to erase this part because this really is behind it. And really this is behind it too. So it looks like a box that I could walk into because it looks like it's resting on the earth and it's just a doorway to go through, which is what we do often. We kind of understand what this looks like. So now I'm going to do this point here, this corner to the vanishing point, but I'm going to stop here. And this gives you what feels like the ceiling of that space. So it is like walking into something that's enclosed. You've got something above you and below you. Anyway, this one here, same kind of thing as the three-cornered square. I'm gonna get those lined up, these three corners. And once I get those drawn, same kind of thing. Those were easy. They all went there without having anything interrupting them. This one here, I'm going to draw this one and I'm going to stop when I hit the side of the box. Now, depending on where you draw your square, if I drew it slightly over here, when I drew this, it might look like I'm drawing corner to corner, but it just depends on how things line up. So you have to be kind of aware that things can look a little bit different when they move in relation to the horizon line and the vanishing point. So I'll illustrate that here in a minute more. But one thing I want you to notice is that these are really three very different points of view. This one is considered the ant point of view, like a little tiny ant crawling around on the ground. Everything's big to an ant. They're looking up and seeing the underside and the sides of a lot of things because they're so little. This one is called the bird's eye point of view because a bird is often way up higher than everybody else and they see the tops and the sides of things, but they don't really see the bottom or the underside of things. This one's kind of like the human point of view or the walking point of view, where this is like resting on the earth, which we're very familiar with, and we really just see the sides of things. We don't see the underside and we don't see the very top of those things. So just a few points of view to understand. If you were to ever decide to be an architect, you would most definitely want to master this type of drawing. If you're going to be an engineer, you'd want to master this type of drawing. An interior designer, a designer of anything, you would probably want to master this in some way. And it doesn't take very long to really get the hang of it. So I've got these shapes here, and you may want to try drawing a couple other shapes. So I'm going to try doing a couple triangles. So I'm going to start first by making a triangle right here. And then I'm going to make one right next door to it. And I'm going to make this triangle look different. This one I'm going to have like all 3 points, or 1 point pointing up, 1 point pointing kind of down. So this one here is kind of like this one in that only 2 sides, there's only 3 to draw, but only 2 of the sides make it to the vanishing point uninterrupted. I can draw this one, and I will, like it. Who's ever seen a triangle cardboard box? I don't know, I haven't seen one, but it kind of gives you that illusion. But that's what that would look like if it was a cardboard non-transparent box. And actually, I just realized I drew this one the same because I think this one is, I'm going to erase this. I definitely want to show you what I mean, where I didn't quite draw it with enough. I wanted to show you what it would look like to have a triangle with all 3 corners able to be drawn to the vanishing point. Because it just depends on how you turn your shapes and how they all go. And this one now definitely will illustrate the point better. 1, 2, and then 3. They all make it. So a little bit different. You may be wondering about a circle. So we've got simple shapes. We've got our rectangle, squares, triangles, circles. Circles are super fun. They don't have any sides, which seems tricky, but this is actually pretty easy. Line up with the vanishing point, and then I'm going to line up my side here. I'm just going to draw it this way until it bumps into it. So it kind of looks more like a cone, but actually it's a cylinder. It's just a cylinder. So that's really what I want you to visualize. It's just a cylinder going back in space. So any size circle, that would work. Now, sometimes I have students that want to do something totally complicated, even on their first try. So if you wanted to do something like a star, stars can be pretty fun, and you think, oh, that's 5 points. Yes, 5 points, but also 5 areas that are concave. So you got to think about those areas too. So I'm going to do this point to the, oops, I kind of missed that a little bit, but I'm going to get, I didn't draw a very good line to my dot, it's close. Anyway, I'm going to get all 3 of those, 1, 2, 3, just make it no problem. This one, I would have to draw right through my shape. I'm not drawing it. This one is sticking out, so I can draw this one like that. This one, I'd have to draw through my shape. This one, I'd have to draw through my shape. This one here, I can line up, and I'm going to run into that. I'm going to run into that. I'm not going to draw it all the way through. And then this one again would have to go all the way through. So I'm just going to kind of keep it easy on myself for now, especially since I'm assuming that this is your first time trying 1-point perspective. So this is kind of how you get started. I want you to practice all the shapes. If you think you're pretty good and you want to try to do something even a little more complicated, one thing that you can do is draw something a little further out and let it be almost like layered. This is the last kind of challenge for you. If I was going to draw this shape out here, line up the side with my vanishing point, but I'm only going to draw it until it bumps into this because this is in front. This is the one thing about 1-point perspective. It really forces you to draw things within a space. Something's more forward than something else. So suddenly I have this cylinder that back here that's a little further behind this one. You can just get that feeling. And you can keep drawing that way if you'd like to, and fill your paper full with as many shapes into forms, 3D shapes as you can. Good luck. Can't wait to see what you draw.